Former budget watchdog Kevin Page joins our press gallery to look at what this could all mean for the economy, care homes, and the eventual road to fiscal recovery. This is Power Play. Let's get to the players. Well, it's been 2 months since the Prime Minister started his daily COVID-19 briefings. 2 months. And in the week since, we've seen billions and billions of dollars in spending programs announced and implemented. But with all the money going out, what's the state of Canada's pocketbook? Does the federal government need to let the public know how deep we're going into the red? Let's get some answers now with the Economic Development Minister, Melanie Joly. And I hope you're well, Minister. Always good to have you on the program. The Prime Minister today said, the Prime Minister said the budget is not going to be released anytime soon because they can't really forecast into the distance. But can you, as the Minister of Economic Development, give Canadians right now a number of how much money exactly your government has spent on economic aid programs? What's the number?
Well, Evan, we are rolling out the economic aid. So if you look at how much the wage subsidy costs, it started last week. And businesses are now applying to get it, and they have to go through a process. We know, for example, that the $40,000 account, another measure, there's now 500,000 businesses that have access to it. And today we announced more funding for businesses that are falling through the cracks. So this is a very, very exceptional situation. It calls for exceptional measures, and that's why we're acting, because what we're doing right now will help us to help business survive, because that's what we're doing right now.
No, I appreciate it's exceptional times, but it should take exceptional vigilance. Let me just re-ask the question. Do you know the exact amount of money right now? I understand it's going to change, and I understand it changes. What is the number now that your government has spent?
Well, the idea is to make sure that we have measures that are affordable and available for people. And we've expanded the social safety net. And when we'll have numbers, obviously we'll make it transparent and we'll send it to Canadians, and we'll give them to Canadians. We know right now that there's more than 7 million people on CERB asking for this social safety net. We know that the state of our economy is in very dire state because of the pandemic. So right now, we're just doing as quick as possible, sending aid, making sure that people can have enough money to pay the rent and put food on the table, and that's our job right now.
No, but your job is also to monitor it. To be fair, I'm not questioning the need for it. I'm just talking about the oversight. If you don't know the total number of dollars, the parliamentary budget officer has said we're going to have a deficit by the most conservative measure of $252 billion. That doesn't include the $9 billion for students, the $2.5 billion for seniors. If you don't know the number today, how are Canadians supposed to trust that there are control measures in place for anything from fraud to deficits?
Well, okay, lots of questions in what you asked. So obviously, let's start with the basic. All G7 countries are in this state right now, trying to help people and making sure that we're providing help to businesses. Second, we had the best fiscal position before going into this pandemic, and we have enough firepower. Now, of course, we need to make sure that we are against fraud. Nobody's in favor of fraud in this country. We will be working with our counterparts in provinces. We'll be working with the opposition, making sure we tackle this issue. But at the end of the day, the focus is making sure that Canadians can survive this very difficult pandemic economically, and making sure that they can protect their health and the health of their loved ones.
The reason why there's a demand for a fiscal update urgently is we have spent, the deficit in 2019 was $19.8 billion. The watchdog now says it could be $252 billion and going up. Normally, the average new spending in a federal budget, new spending is $20 billion. You guys have spent 10 times more than that. That's why there should be an economic update. Do you appreciate when I'm asking you to give a number and you can't give a number on how much you spent? Doesn't that mean we definitely need a fiscal update so Canadians know how much money is being spent right now?
I hear your questions. What I can tell you is I have a good understanding of what's going on the ground with businesses right now. That's my job. I'm in charge of economic development. And we're still in the phase of businesses accessing the funding, assessing money. There are lots of issues for them having access to measures. And so once we know that businesses have access to it, we'll have a better idea of how much it's costing. And meanwhile, a lot of this aid,
Can you
Evan,
give us an idea of when?
A lot of this aid are loans. A lot of this aid is to make sure that people have businesses have access to liquidity. And if they do and can survive, they'll be able to pay back. And that will have also an impact on how much the figures for the federal government look like.
Okay, just real quick then. First of all, not all of it. The wage subsidies, obviously not a loan. The CERB's not a loan, and there's others. Do you have an idea when you will give a fiscal update so we can get a look? Any household that's spending a lot of money is going to keep track of their money. Any business that will ask a vice president, they'll say, "What's the spending?" They got to know that number. When will your government provide a number that we can all just get a sense of what's going on here?
Well, definitely, as soon as we'll be able to do so, we'll do it, and we'll work with the opposition to make sure that they have access to the information as we're working on different plans.
Okay, I can't find out there's a date there. Let's just talk about the loans. Your government is giving bridge loans via the Large Employer Emergency Financing Facility, the LEAF, to companies, but there are strings attached. For example, oil and gas companies, your government wants them, and I'll quote, to publish annual climate-related disclosure reports indicating how their future operations will support environmental sustainability and national climate goals. Why, if you're giving them a loan, why do you have that kind of string attached to that? Why, if the goal is to keep them viable, why would you say you can only get a loan from us if you also do this? What's the purpose there?
Well, because it's a way for businesses to have access to money, but also they have to decide to come to the federal government after seeking funding and financing through different financial institutions. So from the moment that they decide to come and see us, well, it's because they're willing to abide by certain conditions that are key for society and our economy and taxpayers, including the fact of respecting the environment and a co-responsibility. And I think a lot of the natural resource sector are investing massively and want to do more, and so they're in good faith. But at the same time, I would say, looking at in terms of remuneration of shareholders, so dividends, shareholder buybacks, making sure that there's finally more equity. You know, the biggest issue we're trying to tackle here is helping big businesses to keep their workers, make sure we can continue to support our economy. Right. But meanwhile, that after the pandemic and this economic crisis, that inequities are not skyrocketing in this country.
Right. Oh, okay. I have 30 seconds. I am not sure how that necessarily applies, but just how did your government just figure out who gets strings attached? For example, if you apply for the CERB, the Canadian Emergency Response Plan, no questions. For a student to avail themselves of that program, they got to prove that they're looking for a summer job. And oil and gas companies now got to do climate disclosures. How come CERB has no disclosures necessary, but students need it? I'm trying to figure that out.
We started with a people's first approach. People were losing their jobs, losing their contracts, or kids were staying at home, and parents needed to be there. So we expanded massively the social safety net to make sure that nobody would be falling through the cracks. And then afterwards, we went to small businesses. Now we're getting to big businesses. And it shows that are the priorities of our government.
All right, I got to leave it there. Minister Joly, good to have you on the program. Take good care.
Always
Thanks so much.